much, many, some, any, lots of, a lot of. How do we use them in English? I don't have a lot of time, but I want to learn lots. I normally make many mistakes in English, but how much does it matter? Well, I have some tips for you so that you can save time and that you don't have to watch any other video. In this video, I will be explaining the difference between much, many, a lot of, lots of, some and any, so that you can feel more confident using these in English. This topic is closely connected with countable and uncountable nouns. For this reason, if you haven't already seen last week's video, I would highly recommend pausing this video and going and checking out that video first. I will link it in my description box. And then, once you have watched that video, come back to this video to watch this one. It will make a lot more sense, as if you can't choose between countable and uncountable nouns, it is going to be very hard for you to choose between much and many. If you are new here, my name is Charlotte and I am an English teacher from the United Kingdom, helping you to learn English as a second, third, fourth or even fifth language. Without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. So, first, let's start with much, many, a lot of, and lots of. When do we use these in English? First of all, these are used when we're talking about a bigger quantity of things. And they are used with countable and uncountable nouns. As a little recap, for example, an apple is countable. We can have 1 apple, 2 apples. However, water is uncountable. We cannot count it. We cannot have 1 water, 2 waters when we're talking about the physical liquid. So, in a nutshell, if we introduce much and many, many is used with countable nouns and much is used with uncountable nouns. Easy? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, and we are going to look at the rules with when we can use much and many in what type of sentences. So, in English, we have 3 types of sentences. We have affirmative sentences, positive sentences, such as I have an apple. We have negative sentences, like I don't have an apple. And we have interrogative sentences, basically questions. For example, do you have an apple? Let's look at what happens when we use much and many with these 3 types of sentences. First, let's take countable nouns. So let's take our apple from earlier. Because we are using many, it's meaning we have more than 1, we are going to have to use the plural. So, apples. In the positive sentence, we can say, I have many apples. In the negative sentence, we can say, I don't have many apples. And in questions, we can say, do you have many apples? Easy? Yeah, pretty much. You can use many in all types of sentences. However, one thing to note is that if you use it in the affirmative, so the positive sentences, it usually has a bit more of a formal meaning. So it is better maybe in writing, etc. But we also use it generally when we speak. We will focus on this a little bit later on in the video when we look at a lot of and lots of. Okay, now let's take a look at uncountable nouns using much. Remember, uncountable nouns cannot be plural. So we cannot have waters or informations or advices, for example. These nouns will stay in their singular form. So let's take water. In the positive sentence, we have there is a lot of water. In the negative sentence, we have there isn't much water. And in the questions, we have is there much water? Here, you can see that we have mixed a lot of and much. For the interrogative, the questions, and the negative, we can use much. However, for the affirmative sentences, the positive sentences, usually we will use a lot of. Sometimes it is possible to use much, but it will be a very formal style of writing. For example, there is much concern about blah 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 blah. However, generally speaking, if we have a positive sentence in English with an uncountable noun, it is much more common to say a lot of. Now, you may be wondering, I have used a lot of, but what is the difference between a lot of and lots of? In short, there isn't a difference in meaning, but there is a difference in formality. A lot of is informal, so we probably wouldn't want to write with it academically, but lots of is even more informal. So if you're in a situation where you have to speak in a more formal way, lots of is probably not going to be your choice. However, they are used the same and you can interchange them, but there is a difference in formality. So this leads me on to how we can use a lot of and lots of with these sentences. In fact, a lot of and lots of can actually be used to replace much and many in any of these sentences, but the formality will be a bit lower. You can see the examples on the screen to how the sentence will look with lots of or a lot of. So the real difference here is only the formality. Also, a little tip, if you aren't sure whether a noun is countable or uncountable, you can use a lot of or lots of, because you will never be wrong. The only thing which could be wrong is that you're using a lot of when there's a better way to say it in that situation because of the formality of the situation. Okay, let's move on to some and any. Some and any are fairly nice because both countable and uncountable nouns work with some and any. The general rule is some goes with affirmative sentences, so the positive sentences. I have some time, I have some apples. Any works with the negatives and the questions. I don't have any time, I don't have any apples. And with the questions, do you have any time? Do you have any apples? But as always in English, there are some exceptions. First, if we are requesting something, in the questions we can use some. For example, can I have some sugar, please? Also, if we are offering something, we can use some. Would you like some cake? When we are suggesting things, we can also use some. Let's go and get some food. And the last one is any with the affirmative, with the positive sentences. It can sometimes be used if we don't have any limits to something. Let's take a little look. Anywhere. If we use any, we have no place in mind. Anything is possible. All options are valid. Okay, it's your turn. Can you answer these questions on the screen? Write your answers in the comments below, and I look forward to reading them. I will also put the answers in the comments below so that you can check your answers, but I look forward to also reading them. If you would like to also create your own sentences with much, many, some, any, a lot of, lots of, feel free to write them in the comments and I will check them for you. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video. So until then, bye for now.